Need for Speed. It was an important day on the island of Sodor, and all the engines were very busy. Especially the Fat Controller, who was taking a boat trip to the mainland for some private business, and was taking Gordon with him. And that was why he left Molly in charge with the Express. She loved pretending to be like Gordon and going at dangerous high speed. It makes her feel very energetic and really useful. She hurried along the line as usual, and she made it to the station just in time where Stanley was waiting. While the Fat Controller was away, Stanley was now in charge of the railway. "Right on time, Molly," said Stanley. "Thank you very much, Stanley," said Molly. "I'm the most fastest engine on the railway." "Oh, the slowest, in fact," said a voice. It was Connor. "Well," he said, "I don't think any of you are a match for me," he said, "or for us especially." "What do you mean?" asked Molly. "Molly is not slow," said Stanley. "That's my point," said Connor. "All Sodor engines are slow, except for one of the most fast streamline engines on the mainland," he said. "Connor," said Caitlin, "don't be rude." "I may be wrong," said Connor, "but I am the most fastest and splendidest engine ever," he said. "We're all splendid engines," said Molly. "I could beat you in a race any day, Connor," she said. "Well, you're so old that everybody needs you for scrap," he said. Molly was so cross, and she puffed out of the station. "So long, Princess Slow," he said, and Molly had had enough. "You'll regret that," she said, and she puffed crossly away. But when Molly arrived at the station a few days later, she was shocked. She saw Connor with the Express. "What are you doing?" she asked curiously. "Stanley has assigned me to pull the Express today since you have a special." "Goodbye, Princess Slow," he said cheekily. He chuckled and puffed away. Molly felt sad of leaving the Express. It was her favourite job, and she was so upset with giving it up. Just then Stanley arrived to cheer her up. "I'm sorry about what I've made Connor do, Molly," he said, "but I do have a special." "Really?" said Molly, and she puffed away with Stanley to see the special. As soon as they arrived at Lord Michael's station, Molly was surprised. The surprise was a golden horse for the museum. Molly was surprised. "So that's my special," she said. "Yes," blushed Stanley. "You're going to need it," he said. "That's for the museum, and you ought to take it. They've assigned you for this job, Molly," he said, "because they know you like specials." Molly was surprised. "Thank you, Stanley," she said, and she felt much better. The shunter had coupled Molly to the flatbed, and she puffed away to the museum, whistling peep peep and goodbye to Stanley. Later, after taking the horse to the museum, Molly arrived at the sheds when she realised that Stephen was talking to an engine she thought looked strange. Molly was surprised to see what the engine really looked like. "Hello," said the engine. You must be Molly. I've heard about you." "I'm Timothy," said Timothy. "Pleasure to meet you, Timothy," said Molly. Molly thought Timothy looked strange. He's an oil-burning engine," said Stephen, "which means he doesn't run on coal, just oil." Molly was impressed, but Timothy could see that Molly was feeling down. "What's wrong?" he asked. Then Molly told Timothy and Stephen what Connor said to her. "Just ignore him," said Timothy. He's too puffed out in his smoke box," he said. He'll get his coming sooner or later." "I hope you're right," said Molly, and she was smiling, and and finally having a good chat with the two old engines. But in the meantime, Connor was enjoying going at dangerous high speed and pulling the express. He loved it very much. He went speeding around too fast that he went speeding past buy stations and showing off. "Out of the way, slowpokes!" he shouted, and Sir Handel was also in a hurry. "Whoa!" he groaned as he saw Connor race past by and accidentally bumped into Rheneas. "Sorry, Rheneas," said Sir Handel. "Learn to watch where you're going next time," shouted Rheneas. Connor raced past by the sheds. "Hello, slowpoke!" he shouted. "Show off!" shouted Molly. "You'll be in trouble soon," said Stephen quietly. Moments after, the turntable had just been turned towards Molly when her driver arrived. He had bad news. "Oh, is everything all right?" Molly asked her driver. "Yes, I'm afraid," said her driver, and he continued the story. Connor was just racing down the line too fast that he went through some points and came off the rails and had damaged his front wheels. "And now it's time you're needed for the express," he said. "The passengers need your help," said Molly's driver. Molly was excited. "That will show Connor a thing or two," she said, and she pissed out of the sheds excitedly. At last, Molly arrived at the bend, and she saw the situation. Then she saw Connor derailed, and she laughed. Connor was embarrassed. It wasn't too long until Connor was finally back on the rails and Molly was ready to go. "So long, Connor!" she shouted. Connor didn't say a word and never said anything back to Molly. Molly was so excited she whistled goodbye to Donald. Then Molly had finally reached the station, and the passengers were very thankful for what Molly had done for them. Molly whistled loudly to say how pleased she was with herself. At last, Molly was greeted by some two familiar whistles. There was Timothy and Stanley, all coming here to congratulate Molly. "Well done, Molly," said Stanley. "The Fat Controller would be proud of you if he was here now," he said. "Now, the passengers all need to go home. You better take them home straight away." "Yes, Stanley," said Molly. Then she asked Timothy. "Timothy," she said slowly, but then she tried to say, "You what?" asked Timothy. "Well," said Molly, "would you like to pull the express with me?" she asked. Timothy smiled. "Sure, Molly, I'll do that," he said, and the two whistled and they set to work. Until moments after, Timothy was now coupled to Molly. The guard blew his whistle, and the two set off for home. The two were both doing the best they could to pull the express together. It was heavy, but they managed it very well. At last, the two engines had finally reached Lord Michael's station, and all of the passengers were very pleased. They were all pleased with Timothy and Molly was very happy. "Thank you, Timothy," she said. "I would never have done this without you." "Any time, Molly," said Timothy, and he was very happy. Even Molly was happy too. After that, Connor was with Stanley at the station when Molly arrived. Molly was worried that Connor would fling insults at her, but she was wrong. Connor was finally ready to apologize. "Molly," he said, "I'm sorry I called you Princess Slow," he said. "That's all right," replied Molly. "Let's be friends from now on, Connor," she said. Then Connor had an idea. "Now that we're friends again," he said, "can we have a race?" he said. "I'll be ready to win, Connor," said Molly. "So would I," said Connor. but Stanley wasn't sure about this. But then he decided. "All right," he said. You two can race, but remember to go slow around bends," he said cautiously. "Will do, Stanley," they both said. "Molly," said Connor, "you're on." "Yes," said Molly, and the two big engines raced together, knowing that their friendship was developed.